Hello all, this is Azure Knowledge as a Screencast. Welcome in the next episode. In today's episode we will talk about Azure Service Fabric. What is Azure Service Fabric? It's a distributed system platforms which helps us to easily deploy and scale stateful or stateless microservices running in containers. Service Fabric can be deployed not only in the Azure cloud but also on premises, on Windows or in Linux servers. Today we will create small Azure Service Fabric application with one public API and one stateful service. We will try to communicate from API to our service, and because our service will persist some data, we will try to save and get data from there. Okay, let's start. First of all, what we need to make sure that during installation of Visual Studio we added the Azure development section, and in addition we need also download SDK from the Microsoft site. It will give us the ability to build new type of project in the Visual Studio. Okay, so let's start with creating new application. In the cloud section we can see that we have a Service Fabric application type, and let's name it. Here we have templates for the first project, which will be in our Service Fabric application. Let's first of all add our web API, which will be the stateless AS.NET Core application, and let's call it the API. After creating a new project, we can see that we have two projects in our solution. First is the API, and the second one is the Service Fabric application with some specific configuration for the whole service. Let's create new service in the application, which we will connect to our API later. So let's move to the new service Fabric service, and the second service will be our stateful service. Let's call it, for example, project service. Okay, the core of our application is done. We have our web API and our one service. Let's do some modification before testing it. So let's go to the service manifest.xml of our web API and change that our API will be hosted on the port 80. And right now we have a default controller, which was done when we created the new API. So let's test it. It can take a while to build the application for the first time, so let's wait a few seconds. Application is being deployed to our local cluster, and in meantime I would like to show you that during the installation of SDK we also installed the Service Fabric local cluster manager, which is shown here. After clicking it, we have information about our cluster. We can see that our cluster have 5 nodes, 1 application, 2 services with 2 partitions, and 4 replicas. This is Fabric Explorer, which can be used to monitor our application. And here we have our KaaS demo application. So let's move to our API. Only one partition, only one instance, and here we have a address of our site. So let's click and move to our API. Our API is working correctly. We have proper GET response, so we can see that our application is working. Right now, let's connect our API to our project service. First of all, let's do some small class library with our contract. So let's add new project. It will be simple class library called contracts. Let's remove the default class. And we need also to add some external nuggets to all of our projects. So let's do that. We need to have Microsoft Service Fabric .services and Microsoft Service Fabric services remoting. So let's add them. Okay, we have Nugget installed in our projects, and let's communicate and let's connect our service to API. One of the ways how to communicate between services is use the programming model called reliable services. Thanks to that, we can connect to other service in our application using any protocol, for example UDP, HTTP. Everything inside one Azure Service Fabric can be easily connected. So let's first of all create our contract interface. Let's call it iProject Service. Mark it as a public. And also, to mark our service as a reliable service, we need to implement iService interface. Okay, let's create some basic method. All of the methods in the reliable service need to be asynchronous. So let's, for example, do method very basic, nothing fancy for the demo. And in our project service, let's implement our interface. Let's return some data. And we need to connect it in our controller. So let's create new controller. Let's remove the old one. We will have our projects controller. Okay, first of all, we need to have our project service instance. connect our service, we need to use the service proxy class. Let's create the proxy. And what we need to do is to put the URI of the service. All of the application inside the Azure Service Fabric application can be connected using the service name. So to do that, we need to provide specific URI. Protocol will be Fabric. Then we need to post the application name and at the end the project name. And that's it. We don't need to care on which port this application will be hosted. The Azure Service Fabric will handle that. Also, we need to provide the partition key. We have only one partition. We didn't name our partition, so we can post the partition key as a 0. Okay, let's create some basic method. Get, and we will check our project service. Also, we need to make small change in our project service. There's a method create service replica listeners. We need to provide the listener for the service. So let's do that. To do that, we can use the extension method from the NuGet. Okay, let's test our application. As you can see here, we have our demo string here, so we successfully connected to our project service and we got data to our web API. Okay, that will be it for this episode. Azure Service Fabric will be also covered in the next episode of Azure Knowledge as a Screencast. So, see you then. Thanks.